Hello and welcome to another Tempo Storm deck spotlight. Saviors of Uldum was recently released and everyone has been looking for decks to ladder with. In today's episode, we'll be diving into a deck spotlight on Combo Priest. During the first few days of the new meta, there were two new priest archetypes created by Zetalot, the Leeroy Priest and the Res Quest Priest. However, these decks seem to still need refinement. The best performing priest list so far has been Divine Spirit Combo Priest, so this is what we'll focus on for this deck spotlight. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all of our Hearthstone content. There will be a lot more deck spotlights for Saviors of Uldum coming soon, and we'll be keeping an eye on the best decks to cover to help you on the ladder grind. Now, let's begin. Divine Spirit and Inner Fire. Name a more iconic duo. This has been the bread and butter combo for priests, with last year's Dragon variant being the strongest to date, with cards such as Potion of Madness, Draconid Operative, Radiant Elemental, and Shadow Visions being highly impactful cards. Since the rotation of these cards, fans of the archetype have still been trying to keep it alive and find the best versions of the deck that can thrive competitively. Prior to the new expansion, it was in a rough spot, only finding itself in some niche decks like Mech Combo Priest, or as a secondary win condition in Nomi Priest during Rise of Shadows. Luckily, with the introduction of Saviors of Uldum, there are a few cards from the set that have been great additions to this archetype. Injured Tol'Vir, High Priest Amet, Psychopomp, Neferset Ritualist, and Holy Ripple are seeing play in the current combo list and seem to be performing well, with players such as Somi Tequila reaching top 5 legend with this deck. Some iterations have tried to include the new Priest quest Activate the Obelisk. However, it seems that it's a bit slow in the archetype and the deck has been functioning better without it. From the new expansion, High Priest Amet is probably the biggest boon and has aided in revitalizing the archetype. It's a great 2/7 body for 4 mana, and if it isn't dealt with quickly, can lead you to having a board of high health minions. For example, if Amet sticks, you can use Divine Spirit, Power Word Shield, or Extra Arms to help buff him, followed by minions that will then have the same health total, allowing you to have multiple potential threats for when you draw into your Inner Fires. Overall, High Priest Amet is a staple card in this list that allows you to snowball and is definitely the MVP. Another great asset to the archetype is Psychopomp, which is kind of reminiscent of Eternal Servitude from Knights of the Frozen Throne, as it can resurrect early minions such as Injured Tol'Vir or Injured Blademaster with full life, allowing for good tempo. Psychopomp also synergizes extremely well with High Priest Amet, as you get the health buff on Psychopomp along with the summon minion. Getting early resurrects on decent statted minions is huge for early game tempo with this deck, and allows you to stay on board and pull off your combo. Neferset Ritualist and Holy Ripple also seem to be great cards in the deck at the moment. Neferset Ritualist is essentially another Circle of Healing with a 2/3 body, and synergizes great with your Northshire Clerics, allowing you to cycle for answers and keep your minions at full life to help push for lethals. As for Holy Ripple, it's good for extra removal in addition to Wild Pyromancer against aggro lists, and helps with buffing minions like Light Warden. Speaking of Light Warden, although it isn't from the new set, it's been seeing a lot of play in the current combo lists and has made a comeback as a solid 1-drop with Northshire Cleric to buff with Extra Arms on turn 2. If it manages to stay alive, it can snowball extremely fast with Wild Pyromancer and Circle of Healing or Holy Ripple, and it can be another good win condition outside of the Divine Spirit combo. With this deck, the plan is still the same. Get minions on board and finish your opponents off with Divine Spirit and Inner Fire. Cards you'll be looking for early are Northshire Cleric, Light Warden, Injured Tol'Vir, Injured Blademaster, Extra Arms if you have a 1-drop, and Circle of Healing. As for the combo pieces, it's usually not worth keeping them in the Mulligan, as Priest no longer has access to Radiant Elemental anymore, which can make things a bit clunky. It's usually better to get set up on board with your minions first, and think about pushing for lethals post turn 5. If you're on coin, it's not a bad idea to keep High Priest Amet as well as Psychopomp. If your Amet dies, you can just follow it up with a Resurrect on the following turn. Targets you're looking to resurrect early with Psychopomp are Injured Tol'Vir, Injured Blademaster, or High Priest Amet. Later on in the game, Psychopomp becomes less valuable due to more minions being in the pool, like Light Warden or Wild Pyromancer, so it's best to try and use it early for more tempo. The best power play is to get a Divine Spirit on High Priest wherever possible and start getting minions down ASAP. This will allow for incredible board presence and make it extremely difficult for your opponent to deal with and setting you up for potential lethal. This deck seems to currently struggle against aggro lists like Zoo Warlock and the new Murloc Paladin, so it's important to keep cards like Wild Pyromancer or Holy Ripple against these decks to help deal with the early boards. It is a fight for board presence at the start of these matchups, and if you fall behind, it becomes difficult to come back. Secret Hunter can also be a tricky matchup, mostly due to their new secret Pressure Plate and other good secrets like Rat Trap and Freezing Trap. They also have access to Deadly Shot, which can be a pain, so it's best to try and go wide against them to make sure one of your threats sticks. One other deck that can give Priest a tough time as well, even though the matchup is around 50-50, is Control Warrior. You need to get on board early against them and try to get your combo off as soon as possible. They have a lot of removal with cards like Shield Slam, Execute, Brawl, and their new card Plague of Wrath. It's hard to play around all of their removals, and unfortunately you often have to make risky plays and hope that they don't have the answers. As for the other popular lists at the moment like Quest Druid, Quest Shaman, and Highlander Mage, Combo Priest is favored and seems to be doing well against these lists as they don't have many ways to deal with your high health minions. For example, against Highlander Mage, the only way that they can deal with your board is if they get a lucky Doomsayer and Frost Nova that you can't answer, or if they get a good spell from everyone's favorite card, Zephyrus the Great, such as a single silence or board clear. Some lists have been starting to run Mossy Horror, which is a good tech to help deal with your High Priest Amet when it's on board, but outside of that, it's an overall smooth matchup for the Priest. We hope you enjoyed this Combo Priest deck spotlight. It's still early in the meta, and we're curious to see how this deck changes as time progresses. We're also looking forward to seeing if other Priest archetypes can find their place in the competitive meta as well. What decks have you been enjoying so far in Saviors of Uldum? Let us know what decks you'd like to see us cover in the future videos in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to keep up with our Hearthstone content. Thanks for watching.